The reason why you're not getting the results you're looking for in your fitness is because you're so stressed out about this job that you hate. I went to Penn State, ended up dating the quarterback for 4 years. People start to tell you what your life is going to look like. I want my career. That's why I went to college. I went to college, be this amazing corporate warrior woman setting boardrooms ablaze. So I worked for a really large media company, international. I did what I was supposed to do. I was miserable, absolutely miserable.
It's not just about the money. It's look at what I do every day.
Yeah.
This isn't making me happy. Am I making somebody else money at the cost of my own life?
Every part of my ego had to shatter. The gift that I was able to bring to the fitness space was really seeing my clients holistically. New York broke me in a way that really led me to rock bottom. San Francisco broke me in a way that I got to really get to know who I was.
I'm excited for today's episode. I am sitting with Allison Tibbs, who is what's the right title you want to say? Wellness coach?
Yeah, let's say wellness coach.
Okay, wellness coach based here in San Francisco who has a very long level of experience in helping people out, becoming the best versions of themselves, not just through physical work, but also mental work, life preparation, many things that I'm excited to get into in here. So without further ado, welcome Allison Tibbs. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Allison.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited, Mike. I'm just excited.
Well, I hope that we don't let you down in the show because this is going to be a good one. So starting out first, why don't we give the audience about a quick minute or so blurb of who you are and a little background, and we'll go from there.
All right. Quick blurb. Yeah. It's funny you asked, what do we call you? And I struggle with that a lot because I think the bigger scale is wellness. And throughout my journey about the past 15 years, I've been a personal trainer. I've been a group fitness instructor. I've been kind of a life coach, all these things. And now I realize that everything that's happened over the past 15 years of my life, it really has led to this moment. So for me, I started getting into fitness because I was super depressed. I was living in New York, hated my job, hated everything, hated myself, was in a weird relationship. And one day I just said, I can't keep doing this. And so I got a membership to a Crunch Fitness in Brooklyn. And I said, no matter what, Monday through Friday, I'll go to work because I really hated my job and I hated it. And so I would say after work, I would come straight home, change out of my corporate attire and go straight to the gym. And at that time, I didn't know much about fitness, working out, strength training. So I took classes. And whatever class was offered after work, I took it. Whether it was a hip hop class, a pole dancing class, a capoeira class, it didn't matter.
That's awesome.
That was my win for the day. And what I noticed from that period of my life was that collecting a daily win like that and having it be physical, it started to change me in ways I never could have imagined. Because I knew I wasn't mentally or emotionally or spiritually strong enough to change. So physically was like the only thing to do. And so after about a month of doing that, I noticed that I was listening to different type of music. I was cooking better meals. I was reading books that were, nurturing my mind. I eventually quit my job. I left my corporate job at 25 and took a gap year and fell in love with wellness. And so for me, I tell people like fitness literally saved my life.
Wow.
And now I just want to pay it forward.
So corporate job, what industry were you in if you don't want to say the specific company?
Sure. So the joke is I was working for the man. I literally, there are about a handful of men in this industry, in this world that we would look to, but it was a really large media company. So I worked for a really large media company, international, and I did what I was supposed to do, right? You go to a good high school, you get good grades, you go to a good college, you do the internships, you do all the things, you get the job out of college. And I was miserable. I mean, absolutely miserable. My manager would put a box of tissues on my desk every Monday. And the goal was to have the box still there by Friday because I would cry so much. Because I was that unhappy.
Wow.
On Sundays, I would call my mom and she would just listen to me cry for hours. Well, I wouldn't say anything. I would just cry. And, my managers, they, bless their hearts, and my mom and everyone, they were trying to be supportive. So they moved me around a lot to different marketing roles, and turns out I'm horrible at sales. It's like I was costing the company money every time I would have a sales call. It was like somehow we were giving them stuff.
Wow.
I was like, I don't think this is my role. Moved into human resources, enjoyed that. But ultimately I was like, there has to be more. There has to be more to life. And I was living in New York at the time. It was 2009, where kind of similar to what we're going through right now. A lot of layoffs.
That time in New York.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Like you're sitting on the subway and you're seeing people with like banker boxes filled with their stuff, in tears heading home. I remember seeing the headlines of all the banks just, crumbling. And that's when I decided I wanted to leave corporate America. So people are like, are you insane? Like, this is not the time to quit your job and not have an idea of what you want to do. But I knew, and I knew it was April, like a morning, and I woke up, and it felt like someone was sitting on my chest. And I remember, like, I couldn't get up. I will never get this morning out of my mind. And it was like someone sitting on my chest, and I couldn't get out of bed. And then I did a fast forward to 40 years. Because I kind of did the math of like, okay, you're supposed to retire, in about 40 years. I was 25 at the time. And I thought to myself, there's no way I'm going to do this type of morning for the next 40 years. And so that day, I decided that I was going to leave my job December 18th. It was the last Friday before Christmas. Jeez. So that was it. I had no real plan. I had no clue to what I was going to do. And it wasn't like I didn't like my job, but, when you realize there's more, you can't unsee it. You can't unfeel it. You can't unexperience it. You're like, what am I doing? I probably would have done things differently in hindsight, like save money and, when you're young, you're 25 living in New York, and, you think you're invincible, and, so.
I could definitely see that. I mean, wow, you opened up a lot of information there, and there's so many things that we can go with that. One thing I want to ask you first I think a lot of people around here especially go through is that you go to college and you're kind of told this is the life I'm supposed to get in. Yeah. Going into your corporate job in media, was it about the prestige, the money? What was like the primary driver, if you could be honest with where your mindset was at the time?
I think it's a little bit of all of it. I think being a Black woman in America, I'm lucky. Well, I don't want to call it lucky. I don't know. My parents never told me I had to work harder because I was Black. They never told me I had to work harder because I was a woman. They never gave me that narrative. I think naturally I just was a motivated younger person. Mm-hmm. Always. I mean, if I think back to growing up as a child and, just leadership and just things like that, I was always motivated. So I think for me it was just a natural inclination of who I was. But I think as I started getting older, like in high school, and realizing that, none of my cousins who were older than me had gone to college. My mom and my dad, grew up in pretty humble beginnings, and they both left their homes to pursue their careers and to pursue a life. And so being exposed to that, I think at a young age, and being, again, Black and female in America, my parents were divorced when I was 4. My dad ended up going to Europe. So I spent my summers in Europe, which now as, a 38-year-old, I'm like, wow, that was awesome. Like what a gift that I had to be exposed to that at such a young age. So seeing him navigate through the world, seeing my mom navigate through corporate America, I think it was just me saying, well, this is what Tibbs do. This is what we do. We go out there and we do it. So I think it was part of that. I originally wanted to go into marketing. I went to Penn State for marketing. And, I love this kind of idea of business and creativity and people and being able to create something. I love to create things. So I thought that would be, stable enough. It would be fun. And I thought it would give me a lifestyle that I wanted, I imagined myself corporate, wearing suits every day, just working my way up to a corner office in Manhattan somewhere. So yeah, there's a little bit of ego in there and a little bit of
with that Sex and the City lifestyle.
Yeah, who wouldn't want that, And so I think it was a bit of that. And I'm so blessed that my parents never pushed me to do something that felt inauthentic to me. Like they were really letting me kind of pick my path. I would say up until graduation of college. Then it was a little bit of like,
really?
We'd had some conversations
Yeah.
and some agreements had to be made.
Oh man.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because this is a big topic in the world today in terms of the message that we give to young women about what you're supposed to do, how your grandmothers and mothers did it back then and how you have so many more opportunities now that they didn't have.
Yeah.
And it's sort of the pressure of you kind of have to go this corporate route because you need to be fully independent, make your own money, take care of yourself. You don't need anybody else. And it's obviously true that you don't need anybody else. But at some point, and you seem to kind of realize that in the job, it's, okay, I'm in this world, but it's not just about the money. It's look at what I do every day.
Yeah.
This isn't making me happy. Am I making somebody else money and at the cost of my own life? Is it that, I'm living in New York, the big city, but really the life that I kind of thought it was on TV is nothing like what you see in real life? Mm-mm. Does that seem like something that pretty much sums it up?
That's like nail on the head.
Wow.
Nail on the head.
So how do you convey that? I mean, actually, we're going to get into your current job now in a second, but how does that, do you feel that same sentiment with a lot of your clients? Like in the back of their mind that they're going through a similar thing of kind of, why am I doing this? The money's good, but why am I doing this?
Yeah. It's funny. When I transitioned into personal training, I started training actually on this street, down in Financial District. And I had a lot of clients who I really gravitated towards, it was kind of like three different groups of people. It was like an older group of men who like were very established, had, CEOs of companies, multi-companies, just like the clients that they just get it. And they just like, in hindsight, they just wanted me to tell them what to do because they were so busy telling other people what to do. So they're like, yeah, Allison, just tell me what to do for this hour. And then I had, a group of women that were in this space of rediscovery. So I would say they were, in their 40s and their 50s and their 60s, and they were in this space of just really reconnecting with themselves and their bodies and wanting to get strong. Mm-hmm. And then I had a group of younger females, and, I saw myself in every single one of them.
Wow.
And I really enjoyed working with them because, yes, we were working on fitness and we were getting them stronger or helping them reach their goals, but most of them had to stop training with me because in some capacity, I either helped them to quit the job they were in that was paying for their gym membership, break up with the partner who was not, worthy of them. This group of young women that I was training, they stopped training with me, not because of anything negative. It was just they quit their jobs because I realized the reason why you're not getting the results you're looking for in your fitness is because you're so stressed out about this job that you hate. You're so stressed out because you have this partner who is horrible, either to you or to themselves, or, taking up so much energy that you can't even focus on yourself, or, you don't like living in San Francisco and you're living here because you feel like you have to or whatever. And I think that's something that I see so much in my clients always. And even when and I think I have a sweet spot of picking up on that because I'd been in all of those situations. Weird jobs, weird relationships, weird self-image, self-love stuff, depression. I mean, all the things that I think we don't typically think have an impact on feeling good and healthy and well and all the things that we want to feel. We just kind of condition ourselves of like, well, this is it. This is how it goes. Yeah. And so I'll just work out harder. I will, restrict my eating even more. I'll do all these crazy, excessive things when it's like sometimes it's just stop, let's really evaluate what's happening. And so I think the gift that I was able to bring to the fitness space when I first started was really seeing my clients holistically, of who they were as a whole person, and seeing how does that impact our time together. And you know, I think I'm an empathetic person. I think I'm a person who listens deeply in a way that's not just with my ears. I think I listen with like my heart and my soul and my eyes and my body. And when I'm with someone, I take liberties to be like, okay, I think this is really what the issue is. Let's work through that as we're here on the gym floor.
Right.
So yeah, I think that especially for women, it's so important that we check the thoughts and we check the narratives and we check the conditioning that we have, because all of that dictates how we show up in the world. And I think for men, it's the same way. You know, I think there's some different things there, but also there's conditioning. There's, you know, that's why I think I love the older men that I got to work with, because I gave them space to just be vulnerable. I gave them space to navigate through things, talk through things. I think having a corporate background allowed me to meet them where they were. And, you know, sometimes I was talking to my clients about things that, you know, their board would be pissed if they knew they were talking to their trainer about getting advice on. So, you know, I think that's what we need more of is space for that, because we can't keep living off autopilot, you know?
It's interesting because what I've noticed, and I'm 39 years old, and I've seen how, when I look back on my life, you really realize how long it takes, especially guys who want to climb up in like an industry like that, how long it takes to develop that. You really, you know, back in the day, you think once you graduate college at 22, 23, that you're going to get this 6-figure job and life's going to be good from there. I'll figure it out later on. And you realize you really don't know anything at that age. You really have to work to make your name in this world. You really have to kind of find out early on, am I chasing that career? Am I chasing the money? Do I want a family? Do I want to have the suburban lifestyle? And at least with guys, the longer it takes us to get there, as long as we keep ourselves in shape, we're always going to be available to have that family. Right. And women, it's different because there is a time crunch if you want to have children. And it's like, wow, you know, I want to follow the career, but I also want to have a family. And there's like this really, you know, Goldilocks zone, if you will, to say, if you're going to figure it out, you got to do it here. And the pressure that, you know, I can only imagine what a lot of these women go through who are climbing the corporate ladder, what they see, what they face every day. And it's a different mindset than we were teenagers, when it seemed like, okay, life should be good. And it really is a lot more harder than we thought it was.
More. Yeah. And no one tells us, you know, and I think that's the thing where, like, I always joke, I'm like, no one ever says, hey, you know, and about, you know, your 20s are going to be a lot. You're going to have a lot of fun, and it's going to be really humbling, you know, in one way or the other. Like, what you thought you knew about yourself and the world, for most of us, it's going to be completely different or altered in a way, or, you know, and I think it's, you know, what do you do when you're faced with that?
Yeah.
You know?
You know, I can't blame my parents at all, because the mindset was different. The mindset was, hey, we got married at 20, not whatever it is, and then we started a family, and then, you know, the husband has his 40-hour-a-week job that he's going to work at 35 years, and the woman has a part-time job where she takes care of the kids, and you'll just take care of that. You can do it and go on. You just kind of do what we did, because nobody knew what social media was back then. Tech companies were. The money that is poured into the Bay Area in the last 20 years or so, it's just crazy. When people come from here, from other parts of the states, and they say, it's $4,000 to rent a closet here. Like, yeah, we're just so numb to it that, this is just the way it is here. You go somewhere else, you can have a more legitimate cost of living.
Yeah.
But, you know, it's such a different world over here that I can't blame them for not preparing us for it. And the way I kind of see it, we're seeing the writing on the wall now. So the next generation of kids can say, hey, you can have fun in your 20s. Don't try to settle down when you're 25 or 30 like maybe your grandparents did, because it was normal back then.
Yeah.
You have plenty of time. You know, you're not old at 26. No. So you have so many more things to look forward to and to improve upon yourself.
Yeah. I actually love this idea of, like, you're not age, right? Of just like what we thought or considered age to be, and like that's at this age I have to do this, or at this age I have to do that. You know, I turned 39 in February, and it's like, in some aspects I'm like, I feel like, sometimes I feel like I'm 16. You know, like sometimes I feel so, just in awe of the world and in awe of like life and, completely just unjaded, and my body feels good because now I know how to take care of it in a way that is authentic to me and intuitive to what I need. And then some days I feel like I'm like 95 and it's, it's like,
there are days where it does catch up to you. You're right. But we know now about what we're eating. We know now about how to take care of ourselves, the mental health, how it's been building up, what to do with it. So, at 39, if I saw my dad at 39, the beer belly, the balding, whatever, that's what you thought 39 was.
Right.
I didn't think I would be in this good of a shape at my age at 39.
Right.
I don't have kids, and I always joke with people, man, that's the secret. You just, if you don't have kids.
That's what my dad says. He's like, kids are amazing. They're he said, they're amazing and they ruin your life.
He said,
so tread lightly.
I have nothing against anybody who has kids. I think having kids is probably one of the best things we can do as a species around the world, but it doesn't mean it's for everybody.
Yeah.
Some people they're going to be great parents and, you want to support them all, whatever. And then some people are like, I'm never going to be a parent. That's not who I am. But it doesn't mean I can't go and help out the other generations.
Yeah.
Like if you want to adopt a kid, if you want to be a mentor, a big brother to kids who exist, but they don't have that parental influence.
Yeah.
And if you don't kind of go and address them, where are they going to grow up to be?
Exactly.
So having an influence on other kids' lives just because they're not yours can be just as much, if not better, than if you had your own and that was where your focus was.
Yeah.
So anytime someone says, hey, I have to have, you don't have to. You got to do what's best for you.
Yeah. This is actually ironic. Not ironic, I guess, just serendipitous. Last night I just completed the form for like potentially freezing my eggs next year. I was just like, okay, I think this is the time. I think this is a good time for me because life feels slower and life feels a bit easier and just to explore that. Again, it's like, to your point, I always say, I know that I'm meant to be a mom. Like, I know I'm meant to be a mother. Mm-hmm. And that's all I know. Like, I don't know what it's supposed to look like, but I know that there is space for me to do just that. Like, to mother a child, a person, but it's like I think that's the cool thing too, is one, and it's such a blessing, and I have to remind myself I have to check my privilege a lot. I do. I think living, especially living in the Bay Area, and how I came to the Bay Area. I came to the Bay Area broke as a joke, like no money, literally just, bad. To the point where it's like owed thousands and thousands of dollars to, credit cards and this and that. It was ridiculous. I got myself into a bit of a predicament.
And you're originally from New York, Pennsylvania?
So I'm originally from all over, but I would say that Chicago, like the suburbs of Chicago, is like my home.
Got it.
That's where I feel like my formative years were there.
Gotcha.
Like I learned who I was, I think, there.
So why San Francisco?
So I grew up in the suburbs, and I wanted to go to a Big Ten school for college, but I didn't want to be around anyone that I went to high school with. So my counselor was like, well, there's one Big Ten school in Pennsylvania. It's, 600 miles away. It's like 40,000 students. Even if there is anyone from this high school, you will probably never see them. And there's only one other person I knew of who went to this college. So I was like, done. That's where I want to go. And so went to Penn State. And then from there, really started to feel like I could possibly do the East Coast. I thought the East Coast was where I would eventually end up. All my best friends from college, who I'm still friends with today, were all on the East Coast. We're from like the Bronx and New Jersey and, DC and Maryland. So I was like, I just really vibe with these people. It feels really good. And I really had no desire to come back to Chicago after college.
Gotcha.
It's cold. It's like 9 months.
I've heard that about Chicago. Got a buddy who lives there. Same thing. Like,
9 months out the year, it's just cold, and you have Memorial Day to Labor Day, and that's where you thrive.
That's your sweet spot in there. Okay.
Yeah, and the Bears aren't, football season gets tough. So, so when I kind of was going through my journey of working, then quitting my job, and then I went to Europe for a year after I left corporate America to like find myself, and just like navigating through all of that. I had a good friend who was doing her like doctorate internship in Philly. And I was like, I'll go. yeah, I thought she would go to Florida. I was going to go wherever she went. I was like, we thought she would go to Florida. I was like, let's try that.
Yeah.
She went to Philly, which was like, okay. So it was great. So I was in Philly and I started full-time entrepreneurship. I was more so into taking my marketing degree and working with small businesses in Philadelphia. So I was helping with marketing, with social media, with strategy. I was doing workshops. I really built a solid network in Philadelphia, met, a lot of great people, got connected, but I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know how to properly charge. I didn't have the systems in place. I didn't really know what I was doing. I just knew that I wanted to work for myself, and I knew that I wanted more freedom, and I wanted to make more impact. And I think I did all of those things and also did not make a lot of money.
The reality is like, oh yeah, it doesn't always go together at the same time.
Exactly. So I didn't know what I didn't know. And at that time I was too prideful to reach out for help and too prideful to do all those necessary things to get my business in order and on track. So got myself into crazy amounts of debt. And I remember sitting in my car, and again, ego and trying to keep up with the Joneses and being an entrepreneur and like this hustle mentality. And, that was like what I thrived on. It was like, yes, like no one can outwork me. I'll wake up, early. I'll stay up late. I'll do all these things. And I worked myself into complete depression and anxiety. And it was really bad. And my dad had just relocated to the Bay Area. And we did I think Skype was the thing back then. I think we were Skyping. And he just took one look at me and he said, you're not doing well. You're not. And he's an entrepreneur. He's in tech. He gets it. And I didn't, and it was also an interesting time because my dad was just starting a new business. So like money was tight for him. My mom had just retired and then went back to work because she was taking care of my sick grandmother. So I just felt like, and being their only child, it's like, I don't want to be a burden to my parents when they're both going through these huge, transitions in their own life, which people don't tell you about that either. As you get older, your parents all, it's a different relationship. So I was stuck and didn't know who to turn to or go to. My dad finally said, just come to San Francisco, check it out, see. But I don't think Philly is free. I think the time has run out there. And so I came for 2 weeks and hated every minute of it. I hated every minute of it. I was like, this San Francisco is weird. People are weird. The weather is weird. It's June. It's cold. I'm not prepared for this. The only sweatshirts I could find were like the ones that said Alcatraz that,
Yeah,
like, I was
touristy
like,
ones, yeah.
But then one day I like posted a photo on Facebook and the comments, it was like me up here at 39, like the wind's blowing and, and everyone's like, oh my gosh, you're glowing. You look amazing. You look great. And I thought, no one ever says that when I'm in Philly. And I was like, okay, I think this is where I need to be. I don't know why, but I think this is where I need to be. And this is the first time in my life that that my whole family was in the same country. So this was the first time ever, let alone me being in the same state and zip code of my dad, stepmom, brother, and sister. My mom was still on the East Coast, but everything just felt important. And so, yeah, I stayed lived with my parents for a little bit at like, I don't know, I was 27, 28, I don't even know. Yeah, about 10 years ago. Which I think sometimes it's like all my ego had to shatter. Every part of my ego had to shatter. And San Francisco, I think, will always have a special place in my heart because it broke me in a way that was supportive, where I feel like New York broke me in a way that really led me to a rock bottom to where I had no choice but to leave New York and to quit my job and to start something, where I feel like San Francisco broke me in a way that I got to really get to know who I was. And the city is tough. It's a tough city when you have big ambitions and you want to make a name for yourself and you have no money and you're living with your parents and you're, you know, it can be a tough place. But, you know, again, that's why I check my privilege, because if I think of where I am now, it's like I never would have seen this play out the way it played out at all.
That's crazy to see
At
that.
all.
Just to make sure I'm on the same, you went to New York and then Philly, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So I kind of like jumped around. Like I left corporate America at 25 and I was in New York. And then I went to Europe for like a gap year. And then I came back to the States and was just kind of, I don't know what I want to do. My friend was like, well, I'm going to Philly. I was like, okay, I'll go to Philly with you. And did Philly for 3 years and then came here.
Okay. I know a lot of women are going to ask this question, but did you ever get the point or the question during that time frame of this isn't working in corporate America, where you said, you know, do I want to just settle down and have a family and not worry about this anymore? Did those thoughts creep into your mind?
I think they would have creeped into my mind if I wouldn't have had the really, it was traumatic. Let's call it what it is. He wasn't traumatic, but college relationship that I had. I went to Penn State and ended up dating the quarterback for 4 years. And so people start to tell you what your life is going to look like.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I believe it.
Yeah, they tell you. Like, I never had a say in actually what my life was going to look like. And I don't think I really, and because of the, you know, you go to a big school, you're dating a high profile person, you get to see what it looks like to be a high profile student athlete, and you see how hard they have to work, and you see just what they have to endure. You see it all. And so for me, it was, well, my job, my role is, I go to school, but it's also, my job is to support him. That's it, you know? So my college career experience was a little bit different, because it was never about me.
That's,
you know, do I regret it? No. You know, if I had a chance to do it differently, would I? Possibly. But, you know, then he ended up going to the NFL. So then you have now people you don't even know are telling you what your life is going to look like.
Wow.
You know? And our senior year, things got complicated because I think I started to freak out. Because I think if I really am being honest with myself right now, I think my senior year was one of my toughest years of my life. That was when my depression, it was different. It wasn't like the depression episodes I had when I was in high school, which were more of like angsty and rage and just more physical, I would say. Like I felt it more in my body when I was in high school with depression. This time around, it was like my mind wasn't my own.
Jeez. You
know, like I really had a moment where I was like, I don't know who I am. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how to stand up for myself. I don't know what's important to me. Like I didn't know up from down. And I didn't have space to talk about it. You know, I didn't have space to, you know, I didn't want to burden people. I didn't want to burden him. I didn't want to burden my friends, you know, about it. So I remember one of my friends, it was like senior year, we were like out at a bar, and I think I was like very drunk, and it was like a moment where I got really vulnerable. And she said to me, I didn't know any of this. I knew none of this, you know, and part of me was like, yeah, because I didn't want you to know it. I don't want anyone to know that I'm having this like existential crisis.
Yeah, exactly.
You know? And so we ended up, it's funny. So I ended up getting a job, or getting my job offer, like around this time, like around Thanksgiving time of my senior year. So my second semester was pretty chill. And he was training, getting ready for the NFL and doing all that stuff. And I was like, I want my career. I want a career. I want, like, that's why I went to college. I went to college to get a degree, to get this job, do this thing and to, be this amazing corporate, warrior woman, setting boardrooms ablaze. And so I think what happened with that relationship is that it was, me finding my voice, but not really like knowing how to like use it. And so I remember telling him, it's like, well, I'm going to Chicago. So if you don't get drafted by the Chicago Bears, we're living apart.
Yeah.
Period. I was like, that's it. And people were like, what are you doing? That's so dumb. Like you have this life that you can have. And so I think I did a little bit of, if this is like the first time I'm saying this out loud, but I think I did a little self-sabotage with that relationship because I think I realized that there was something more that I wanted than that lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And there's nothing wrong with that lifestyle, but I don't think that was what I was like born and destined to do and to be. I think that there was something different.
I would totally believe it if you said you self-sabotage because in college, to be dating the quarterback who goes on to the NFL, I can only imagine what people are telling you about, okay, just sit back, enjoy the ride. You're going to, this high profile guy, you guys are going to marry, you're going to be happy on paper, not realizing that his job is going to take him 80, 100 hours a week or whatever to commit to.
Yeah.
And where does that leave you? If you don't have your own career, are you just alone? But on paper, you have this this perfect lifestyle that everybody's supposed to envy.
Yeah.
And then you realize, oh crap, it just sort of hits you. Is that what I want to be for the next 20, 30 years, whatever? Yeah. Or do I want to make more of an impact and say, take control of my own life, do what I got to do. If that means that I give up this quote unquote perfect relationship because I'm following something that's actually more important to me, you do what you got to do. Yeah. I mean, you wouldn't be sitting here talking to me now if you didn't say, you know what, I'm going to go take that chance, go to New York. This is what I wanted to do. Yeah. And even that experience in corporate America in New York, which New York, the environment is just, unless you have lived there, it is like completely night and day from the rest of the country. I mean, absolutely. The cutthroat, the ambition is just, people say they have to get away from New York for the exact same reason that you said. I just can't deal with New York people. Yeah. It sucks for dealing with corporate America because they will cut you down. Trying to find a relationship in New York with other people who are trying to cut each other down is crazy. Yeah. Not to mention that the subway smells, not to mention the traffic sucks. And oh, by the way, it's more expensive to live in Manhattan than it is in San Francisco. Yeah. It's like completely nice place to visit. I do not want to live there.
And I tell everyone, I say, if possible, it's a great place to live for like a year. Like, I think if every person lived in New York for at least a year, they would come out like super resilient, like, because if you can make it in New York, you can really make it anywhere. Yeah. I believe that. So
Frank Sinatra was right.
Yeah, it's like, and it is, and I have people I love there, and I loved so much about it. But I think if I look at it, so I'm loving this conversation because this is the first time I'm really looking at themes in my life. And I think the college relationship, New York, being a first-time entrepreneur, I think a lot of it, the big theme is like, it's, taking time to like look at the bigger picture and think like, is this what I really want? Because not saying that it's wrong. Like, I have friends who are still in the NFL. I have friends who I'm friends with women who are married to NFL players and
anybody on the Raiders?
No, no one on the Raiders. I know. I would love that because I want to go to that stadium.
Stadium is awesome. Yeah. But continue on.
And they are happy, and they are, that's like, and I'm so happy for them, and I think that's where, when you are doing your part to be intentional about the life you want to live and like value checking everything, then you can look at the life or the lifestyle that you left, and you can look on it and at it with like love and compassion and like so much joy for the people who are in it. Mm-hmm. Right? Like, because I'm like, well, that wasn't my journey, but like, you're thriving in it. Or, if you are struggling, I have the compassion and the empathy to like connect with you there. Same thing with corporate America. It's like, when I first got out, some of people would reach out like, oh, can you come and speak to my company about like mindset? I'm like, no, because your entire sales force will quit their job if I go in there.
Tell them how it is. Exactly.
Like, I will shake it all the way up. So it took me some time. Now I have corporate clients where I go in and work with like, corporate groups and stuff. But so I think if we are regularly thinking about our lives and the path that we're on and taking a moment and saying, am I happy on this journey? Am I fulfilled? Am I showing up as the best version of myself? And if you can say yes to that, then by all means, keep doing it. Mm-hmm. By all means. But if any moment you're like, I don't know, and you keep going down that journey, you're going to self-sabotage.
I totally believe it. And I can just tell you on my own side of it, it's just growing up, going to college, finishing in 4 years, thinking like I told you, you're going to get this big 6-figure salary and life's going to be good from that. I thought I was going to be wearing a suit all the time.
Yeah.
Same thing as you. We're like, you're going to get this corporate job, corner office, and that's the thing of the day. And then life just sort of hits you like, okay, you can get there. This is what it's gonna take. Are you willing to make the sacrifices, if you will, to have to go live that lifestyle? You're gonna be working 80 hours a week, not gonna see your family a lot. You're gonna be sitting in front of a computer all day probably, but you'll get the money, you'll get that prestige. But at the end of the day, when you get in your 30s, what does that really get you?
Yeah.
You know, what do you have to show for it at the end of the day? Whereas if you're taking care of your own self, mentally, physically, emotionally, the money is just a result of what your life wants to be.
Yeah.
You don't need $1 million a year to be able to have a great life. You know, you could live fine on $50,000 a year if you want to. It may mean you have to live in a different part of the country, be okay with living in a smaller place. Yeah. But if you're cool with that, you're going to enjoy it. It doesn't really matter what your friends are doing. They may be more successful than you on paper, and good. They may have a great life, but you also don't know what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe they won't tell you, hey, it's a great life, but I kind of, there are things I can't tell you about. Like, okay, I can see that.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest scam. That's the biggest scam. And I think social media has made it even more ridiculous, is that, we only want to talk about our wins. We only want to talk about, the beautiful parts of our lives. And so we continue to feed that narrative for people who are like looking for validation of, well, look at this person, they're living the life that I want. And it's like, we have no clue what goes on behind closed doors. We have no clue the trauma or the things that they are dealing with, right? And we don't talk about it. And that's why I love conversations like this and platforms where people are saying, hey, I'm going to share, this is my experience and it's who I am and it's what's going on. But, I remember one person said, Allison, your social media, like you just are so like put together and like, perfect. And I remember in that moment thinking, oh, then I'm doing it wrong. I'm doing it wrong. Because if I was like, I am a hot mess all the time. And so if I'm portraying that, then it was such a sobering moment for me. And that was like a big shift. It's like, I want to tell people about, that's when I started talking about my depression and my anxiety and panic attacks and, things that I've gone through and talking about the good, the bad, and the real of all of it. Because I never want someone who was in the place I was 10 years ago, completely devastated, completely miserable, completely just broken to their core, and them thinking that there was no other way. Like there was no other way. Like for me, I had suicide ideation all the time. Like it was a moment where it was just like, I remember my dad one time called me and he was like, how are you feeling today? And I was like, well, this was the first day in a long time I didn't think about jumping off of a bridge.
Wow.
And it was like, and he was like, good. Let's have more days like that. And or this is, or having a conversation with my mom and, something goes wrong or doesn't work out. And my mom saying, you're being so rational and logical right now. It's good. And I for me, it would be so wrong of me to not be authentically who I am as much as I can, because if there's one person who's just looking for some type of, if Allison can get through what she went through and she's okay, then I can do it.
Incredible stuff. I will link your Instagram on the bottom of the description for either Spotify or YouTube. But when you go back and look at some of your posts, you do a very good job of posting your wins and your losses. And the days where you're like, today is just a day where I'm just chilling, whatever. I'm really curious, what is the response you're getting from your followers and clients when you do that? When you sort of post your losses, do you get the response of, I want to see more wins. I want you to inspire me. I don't want you to tell me what I kind of don't want to hear. Or do you get people saying, I am so appreciative that you're authentic and you're telling how it really is? What do you think the vibe is?
I think, because you're right, I do wear my heart on my social media sleeve. And I think there was a period where I was wearing that pain and losses as my identity. I think I was holding on to that too much. And I think I was sharing so much of the losses and so much of the depression and so much of the doom and gloom that people were like, this is kind of weird. Like, are you okay? And I had a friend say, Allison, it's okay to share the joy. It's okay to, and I think I felt bad. I think I felt guilty that I'd gotten through it. And I wanted to remind people that my life isn't perfect, or remind people that like I've been through things. And that was another sobering moment of share it all. And I think a lot of people do share that with me. Will say, I really appreciate you talking about burnout, talking about your mental health, experience or your journey. I love that you share, some of the things that you do, like I'm very regimented with my routines because it's literally my mental health, like maintenance plan. Without my, morning meditation, journaling, prayer, hot water with lemon, my morning routine's like 4 hours, but I make the sacrifice of waking up early and doing that because it helps me. It helps me to stay clear and focused and give that. But yeah, so I think people, and I hope people appreciate it. And I hope that, that they take that. But I will find that, even when I was, coaching for Tonal, I was the coach who, I probably wasn't the one who was like super sciencey about like, this is your, whatever. And not to say there's anything wrong with that. Like, I think that there are a lot of Tonal members who appreciate this like very scientific evidence-based approach, which I have. I'm certified in tons of fitness and wellness stuff. But I think for me, like exercising is hard for most people. Exercising is hard for me. Like I don't love exercising all the time. People just assume that I did. And I'm like, no, it sucks. Like I'm literally ripping my muscles apart in effort to get them stronger. And then you take a week off and it atrophies and you have to like start like, so it's, like, I'm like, no, I'm, and so I think Tonal really helped me and gave me a platform to really talk more about all of it in a space where people are moving their bodies and they're, there's this physical element. And I feel like that I was able to like in my mind, it was like, as they were like ripping their muscles apart, I was infusing like the kintsugi, like the Japanese art form where it's like you take broken like glass or porcelain and then you put it back together with gold. So
I've never heard of that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Look it up. It's super, super cool. I felt like I was like that gold, like in like the broken pieces, and not to think I'm like healing them from like all of their stuff, but like reminding them that the work you're doing in the fitness side of your life, it is complete parallel to how you show up in everyday life.
Right.
That's it for me. Right. So I could talk to you about what muscles are working and yes, of course I'm going to cue and do all those things. But for me, the fascinating thing was, how do we take this and how do we make sure that you remember this feeling of you getting a PR, or that feeling of those last 2 reps where you're like, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can do it. And then you do it and you crush it.
Yeah. How
do I take that feeling when you're in a boardroom meeting and you're, feeling nervous about a presentation? How do you make that connection? So that's kind of where I think with, training and coaching and social media, it's given me a place to talk about all of it. And, I just hope that I continue using those platforms as such and trying to not let, all the other stuff get in the way of it, of the message and the authenticity.
That makes sense. So when you got to San Francisco, how did you figure out that that was your calling, especially in an area where you're in Silicon Valley? I mean, Google, Facebook, everybody who comes here ends up working for one of the big, it feels like everybody who comes here ends up working for a big tech company. If not for the money, then that's just what you do in Silicon Valley. Yeah. So how did you get specifically into this aspect?
Well, I knew, it's funny because my dad's in tech. And so a little bit was like, okay, maybe I'll work for my dad. Maybe I'll do that. And that's, an easy way for me to get acclimated into it. But what I realized is that I just got reminded of that corporate life again. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And it was like, well, you can't continue living in like your parents' spare bedroom. I mean, actually my dad was like, you need to find an apartment. Like you need to put it right out there. Yeah. And I was like, you are correct. And so at the time I was like training people, like my sister or my stepmom, I was, just training people here and there. I was doing, like boot camps in the park. So we're like where my parents lived, there was, like right off of Embarcadero, there's like a park and people would come to walk their dogs like every day around the same time. I started training the people while their dogs were running around and playing. So we'd have like a boot camp dog, social type hour. And I just loved it. I loved everything about it. And so I got certified and did all of that. And I applied to 2 gyms. I said, okay, well, there's Crunch. I know Crunch, special place in my heart. It's what, so like that made the most sense. And then I was like, okay, well, Equinox, that seems like, and my dad was like, oh, that's
the premier. Yeah, got to be at that gym one.
Yeah, so he was like, that's it. And, my mom, bless her heart, she's like, well, all she saw were the ads of, she's like, everyone's naked. Like, what do you wear when you work there? I'm like, Mom, we wear clothes. She's like, oh, okay, good. And so those are the 2 gyms. And I did my interview with Crunch and they offered me a job on the spot. Now, mind you, I'm thinking to myself, I have no real experience. And I also know that I have a bubbly personality and like I do very well in job interviews. Like first dates and job interviews.
You're on it.
That's like my jam.
There we go.
It's my jam. So I also know like I can turn the charm on. But for Equinox, it was a little bit of like, this is such a different level for so many things. It's a gym I don't know. It's the clientele. Just things felt a little bit different. And I said to myself, if I get the job at Equinox, then I'll know that fitness, being a personal trainer, is the route that I should go. And if I don't, then I'll figure it out because I always figure it out. And so I got the job and I was like, all right, this is it. And I made my commitment to that. And I think because I didn't go to grad school, so I told myself that Equinox would be my grad school.
Good way to look at it.
So it was like, it really was like, I'm going to get paid to go to grad school, air quotes. And the first year was just learn everything, get certified in everything, learn everything. And I did. I just like ate it all up, learned a lot, humbled myself a lot, made a lot of mistakes in the process, but learned from it. And then the second year was like, be the most effective trainer you can be. That's it. You don't have to be liked. You don't have to have the most people, but you have to, by the end of this year, you have to make sure that you are a trainer that gets people results. They walk taller when they leave working out with you, and you're making a big impact in their lives. And both years at Equinox, I got, peer awards like most inspirational and something, I can't remember the other 2, but it was like very validating to have that like definite purpose of this is what I've come here to do. And I have to do it because it's expensive to live in the city.
Yeah. Just a little bit.
It's like, yeah, it was crazy expensive. And I also was, quality of life is really important to me. So there was this other aspect of, I know I won't do well with like having 1 million roommates in a 1-bedroom apartment, like some people have to do. And so again, I'm always checking my privilege. I'm always counting my blessings. But working at that gym, I think being in that environment, familiarity of a lot of corporate clients in the middle of financial district, I could talk to people and have these conversations. I built my business off of that. I didn't build my business because someone looked at me across the gym and was like, I want to work with that trainer because she's jacked, but I think people saw me really connecting with my clients. And I think they saw us having fun. I think they saw us really being in something. And I think that's what, when people said, I want to work with Allison, it was because they saw that in me. And so I was able to build a pretty sustainable income, and I was able to do the things that I wanted and eventually live on my own and all the things that, I thought were going to be impossible in San Francisco.
Right. Wow, that's exciting stuff there.
Yeah.
A big thing with training, and I talked to some other trainers about this who worked at Equinox too, is the environment is, for anybody that doesn't know, Equinox, they charge a pretty penny.
Yeah.
This is not 24-hour fitness where you pay $25 a month and you have free access. It's like $300-$400 a month, whatever it is.
Plus training,
yes. If you want to train, it's an extra couple $100. So the people who come there are not short of money, whether they're in the financial district or they're, tech people, maybe Facebook gives them incentive or whatnot. And you may go there, whether it's a client or someone who works there, with a certain expectation of what life is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Did you ever feel that you had clients who came up to you and said, I want to look like you. I want to be this. This is you have the figure that I want, and then that they just sort of followed you for that, or did they say, your personality, the way that I see you carrying around, that's really what I want, someone to inspire me? What would you say the balance was?
I would say 80-20. I would say 80% of people connects. I think it was seeing just my interactions and just seeing how I showed up. I think that was a big part of it. And I think that's just how I've always been. If I look back at my life when I'm in flow, and I've been told, they're like, yeah, it's like I connect with it. I don't know why. It seems, so I think there was there. And then there was like that 20% of like, oh, I want, a butt like yours, or, I remember there was one client who said, I only want to work out with hot trainers. And it was like, okay, I think this is a compliment. I don't know. I'm not sure. But, we worked together well, again, because boundaries, and I think at that point I was so focused of like who I was and what I needed out of Equinox. Mm-hmm. So for me, it was like, I'm not here to, boost your ego. I'm here to change you. And if you don't want to change, again, that's cool. But then this isn't going to work. So I think those people who either hired me because they just wanted to say they had a trainer, or hire me because they want, some weird ulterior motives, didn't last long. Because for me, it was just like, no, thank you. Because anything that I do, it has to be a pretty equal exchange of energy.
That's awesome. So doing this, at what point did you say, I want to not only work with my clients physically to get them in good shape, but actually take the step to say, there's more that I can do for people? How did that transition happen?
I think it started to happen when, my clients would like text me, or, the questions that were like not fitness related, and I was pretty much like an open book. Like, if you're going on vacation, send me a video of like what the gym equipment looks like at your hotel gym. So that way we can keep you on schedule. You're out to dinner and you don't know what to eat, shoot me a picture of the menu. I'll give you some recommendations. So, because, it's like you want to empower people, but I think sometimes you need to show them and in the gym, it's a controlled environment.
Right.
But when they're out in the wild.
Yeah. It's that balance between, if you're on a business trip, okay, I should probably eat healthy. But if I'm going to go to Cabo for the weekend, am I going to let myself have that really thick slice of pie? Am I going to have a couple margaritas?
Right.
But just enjoy myself?
Right.
It's like, what do you do with that?
Yeah. And I think sometimes they need to hear, until they have built the muscle of giving themselves permission, they need to hear it from like the authority. And in their lives, I'm the authority of, what they, eat and how they move and, those types of things. But when I started to notice in our sessions, like, for example, I had one client came in one day and she was a mess. She was, in tears. She was like despondent. It was really sad. And, I remember thinking, there's no way I can like train you in this. I can't put you in a squat rack. I can't give you weights because you're so out of your body. It would be irresponsible for me to do this. And so I said, okay, we have some options. We can go upstairs to the rower and we'll just do intervals and you can row and we'll talk through this because clearly you're a mess. Or we can go outside and just throw shit. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? And she's like, can we go on the rower? I was like, not a problem. So I get her on the rower and we just talk through her issues and we talked through what she was going through and we talked through what was going on in her life and why she was showing up this way. And she said, I almost canceled this session and I didn't even care about the late, losing the session, but something told me like I needed to be with you today. And so that was like the first time where I was like, okay, I'm more than a personal trainer. Okay. And then I started to notice patterns, or like text messages of like, Christmas time comes around and like, again, you work at Equinox, your clients are really generous and lovely and wonderful.
I love those clients.
Know, and they give these most generous gifts. And, every single card that I got with a very generous gift was, working with you 3 hours a week, working with you has improved my productivity and my business. And, my company has increased its profitability because of our time together, or my relationship with my whomever is better, or I feel so much more confident because of you. And so when I started to hear those types of things and getting that validation, and, that's when I knew that, okay, I'm onto something, and got some more certifications in coaching and really started to think about how to bring that element into it. And so then again, I made the decision to leave Equinox because it was like, if I want to go deeper with people and I want to have a deeper experience, and, I think, and I'll never, again, everything that I look at in my life, it's like it served its purpose. And I'm so grateful for that opportunity that they took a chance on a trainer who had like really no experience and just allowed me to be a sponge and gave me great mentors. I'm still friends with one of my mentors now. We do a lot of work together. He's amazing. A trainer that I mentored when she first came in, now, I was in her wedding and, we had to skip our weekly mastermind meeting today because of this, conversation. But she, and she's like one of my biggest cheerleaders and supporters. So, the trainers that you've brought on from Equinox too. I mean, people that I'm like super grateful that I've had to meet, and I learned a lot, and I learned so much about, how to run a business. So it's like I finally learned how to run a business and how to charge what I'm worth. And so there were so many things that I learned that it felt right to leave and to go private and to take ownership of how I wanted to work with people. And it's been great.
There's one thing that I wanted to ask you about those clients that send you letters saying how much you've improved their life. You kind of realize that it wasn't just about, okay, we're going to improve your squat, we're going to improve your deadlift, we're going to give you more tone on your abs. It was more about the other stuff while you're working out with them, what you guys are talking about. And they're really building that relationship with you compared to if you were just at a trainer that said, all right, give me 10 reps. Okay, great. We're going to go over here. Give me 15. Okay, good job. You're going to get the results. The fact that you went that extra step and said, there's more to you than just, all these reps here. Who are you as a person? Why are you doing this? What makes you tick? Are you really here just for physical fitness, or is it something else? Is it something deeper?
Yeah.
And the fact that you're able to catch that and actually help these people become better versions of themselves. So when they go back to the office or the boardroom, whatever, not only do they feel physically better about themselves, but up here, just getting that information out and getting you to help them out with their mental work. I mean, it just tells you how much more there is going on behind the scenes rather than just the physical stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that when people understand why you're doing it and they can feel it, there's just that connection that people do. And it's kind of the reason why I do the show here, why I don't do Zoom. It's because me and you sitting here talking, there's a different level of human interaction that allows us to actually get deeper into a conversation that we couldn't do if we were on Zoom.
Yeah.
And your clients feel the same way. they're like, wow, you've helped me so much. And they probably can't tell you specifically what you did.
Yeah.
They just know that I'm working with Allison, and not only do I feel good physically, but my mind's so much clearer, and I'm making more money here, and my relationship's doing better. And it's all because of how you put the whole thing together. So it's so awesome how you're able to catch that. So once you realize that, where did you say, okay, now I want to take this and open my own shop? Or where did tonal come into place at that point?
Yeah. So it feels like almost like a blur in a sense. It just was, literally what you just said, I took that and ran with it. It was just like, okay, I know how I'm supposed to serve. I know how I'm supposed to use skill and gift. And I think the world would be the most beautiful place if we all were clear on our skills and our gifts and how we bring them together to serve the greater purpose. And so I ended up training, private. And at first I did the typical, schlepping kettlebells and dumbbells and yoga mats all over San Francisco, from Kezar Stadium to Lion Street stairs, all over the place.
Kezar is so popular for that. Every time you go there, everybody's working with the kettlebells.
Oh yeah. So it's like, I did that. I paid my dues that way. And that, again, as we're talking and I'm thinking about like my journey, it's like, the reality is like, there's space for everyone, like there's space for, because some people, they don't want a trainer all up in their business. And if you don't want me all up in your business, then you can't be my client, because I love being all up in your business. So, and I make it very clear for a session, right? And that's okay, because it would hinder a client's success, because they are so closed off, because they're afraid I'm going to tap into something, or they're just like, I don't want that. I don't want a life coach and a personal trainer in one. I want a trainer, right? So it's like, I'm so glad that there's space for all of us in this wellness space, that everyone can be taken care of. So that makes me really happy. So in that kind of process of me, like kind of like that free agent process, I was, a friend of mine opened up a dance studio. And I originally reached out and said, hey, my background's in marketing, so if you want some help with marketing, let me know. And the conversation turned into, can you just teach a class? And I was like, well, I don't know how to teach group fitness. I'm a personal, I don't know. She's like, well, just teach a class. So I got what I needed to be certified to teach classes. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do that, and got the insurance and stuff. So I was like, okay, I'll try a class. And for a while, it was just like the owner and like 2 other people. And eventually it grew into a group fitness class that was 50 people, 3 times a week, creating this community of all different types of people, it was the first time I realized that there was a community. There are people out there who wanted to feel the same way that my clients felt in personal training sessions. But like the magic where each person feels it turned into this like wellspring of just goodness. And so there was that part of my life where I was, teaching classes and I think honing my skills of storytelling, and honing my skills of how to collectively speak on a topic to a group of people to where it feels relevant to everyone in the room, and they leave feeling like I was speaking directly to them, while also giving them a very hard core and glute workout with really good music. So it was like this very experiential, physical, mental, emotional transformation that was happening at this dance studio. And then I was still personal training. And then I started getting into like doing workshops. So I loved, I was able to take that. So I was talking about nutrition. I was talking about stress. I was doing self-care Sunday. I would just like book a space somewhere in San Francisco and bring a bunch of women together, and we would talk about self-care. We would meditate. We would, write letters to ourselves in the future, like whatever it was. I just was like, if I'm going to be in this city, I want to put my stamp on as many people as possible, not like in a dog peeing on a tree type of thing, but more of like, paying it forward, like continuing to do that. And San Francisco became this really magical place where I just felt like, met so many amazing people. And you know this, like being in San Francisco, you can be on a street corner and you waiting for a light to cross the street, and you could have a billionaire who, you know, an unassuming billionaire. You would have, you know, a personal trainer, life coach, wellness something. You'd have a college student. You'd have this whole kind of like microcosm of people in one area. So I started meeting the most amazing people from different walks of life that maybe I would not have thought about or thought I'd have a connection with a person like that. So there was also that. And that, I think, opened up doors for me. That's when I started getting, come in and speak to my company. Come in and do this. Come in and do a workout for this. So I started to really build bigger roots from a corporate lens. And Tonal came because someone saw me giving a nutrition workshop and said, hey, I think you'd be great at this.
That's awesome. So what is Tonal specifically? Because I know it was really big in the pandemic. Is that just a workout app? What is it?
Yeah, so it's a strength training.
Is that the mirror?
It's not a mirror. It's a connected fitness, but it is connected fitness. So it goes up on a wall and it has arms, and you can lift up to like 200 pounds.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
What has been, because I know you said that when you have your sessions with a lot of female clients, you guys have write letters to yourself. What have you noticed about is San Francisco specifically? It makes it different from New York and Philly in terms of what a lot of people here are going through. Is you see a lot of similarities within the area?
Yes, and I think the pandemic really shook things up, because what I was really surprised is how many people live here that aren't from San Francisco. Mm-hmm. You know, like if you're in New York, you can people are from New York. In Chicago, people are from Chicago. Houston, Dallas. I was really shocked at how many people were not native San Franciscans, and so I started to realize that. So I think when the pandemic happened, a lot of my clients were like, I don't need to be here. I don't physically need to. My company is remote. I can go back to my hometown in Boise, Idaho, or, I can go to the mountains, or I can go to Florida or wherever with my San Francisco paycheck and do a lot more with my money. And so I think that was one element of it. And I think also because San Francisco was so, say what you want to say about San Francisco politics, which, say what you want to say about it. But, when we shut down, like the pandemic, the mayor was like, shut it down. And so I think there was this kind of collective hibernation and slowing down. People weren't going out. People weren't, we were afraid to go outside because we thought we were going to die. You know what I mean? So, and meanwhile, I could be on Facebook and see my friends in other parts of the country out and about, And again, it's not about what your stance is on any of it, but I think that the pandemic really did something to the ethos of the city. And so I think people really started to think, what is life? What is this? Am I happy? Am I happy in this apartment? Am I happy in this relationship? Am I happy in this job? Am I happy with going to work every day? Am I, I think people just really started to think. And I think we just had a bit more time because it felt a bit more intense, I think, compared to other parts of the country. And I think that that's when I felt like that was like one of my moments. And I think probably for you and in your line of work too, it's like we have these moments where it's like we have to rise to the occasion and really do something like heroic or Herculean. And I think for me, it was, my people are scared. My people are uncertain. My people are not moving their bodies because the gyms are closed. And, I felt this deep, my people are in trouble. And so I just immediately pivoted to virtual. Literally, I think we shut down on the 17th of March. I think that Monday, I started doing 3:00 workouts on Instagram.
Oh, you were on it.
I was just like, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't imagine if, taking that being taken away from people.
Yeah.
And so I just pivoted hard. Everyone went to virtual, Zoom, Instagram. I was doing Facebook workouts. I created a paywall. I was just like, we will figure this out, and we will not miss a beat. And I think that was necessary, because I think giving people that normalcy and way to like move through what was happening. And I think to your point of like, where do I want to be a year from now? I think people started to say like, I don't like this, or my home doesn't bring me joy. I've been so busy working, or like at my job that gives me free pizza every day and will groom my dog and, and wash my clothes, then you get home and you're like, oh, this sucks.
Yeah. Had a lot of Google employee clients, didn't you?
Yeah,
And, yeah.
And it's like, and I get it, and that's why these companies do it, because it's the amount of work required to be there. Like, so they want to make it comfortable for you. Mm-hmm. And so you neglect your home. You don't know, you don't know how to be in your home. Or if you live alone, you don't know how to be alone because you're so used to being with people. So I think the past 3 years in the Bay Area, because I mean, if you see it now, like walking around at 8:00 at night, it's a ghost town.
Yeah, it's and the financial district still hasn't come back. It's still like, wow, all these empty buildings. Where's the mess of people that was here before the pandemic? It still hasn't fully come back.
Yeah, and you feel it. It for me, it's kind of depressing. I mean, I do split my time between here and LA, and so I think, and LA was like, there's pandemic. What? No, everything's open.
Yep.
And so, I started flying back and forth to LA, and then eventually got a place down there. And it was like night and day. It was like I was social when I was there, and I was doing different things, and people were out, and it was just like this complete difference. And I was like, I get why people have left the city.
Yeah.
I get it. And also it's like, this is such a great city. And so I'm actually getting rid of the apartment the beginning of the year, and I'm making this commitment to fall in love with San Francisco all over again, because it's a great city and there are people I love here. And my best friend's having a baby like 2 days before my birthday. So there's
congratulations to her.
Yeah, there's like
That's
so
awesome.
much goodness, and like I've created a great family of chosen family here. But it's different. It feels different. It definitely, I feel it in training sessions. I feel it in group fitness classes. You just feel, it's just different.
A different way, a different time to adjust.
Yeah.
That's interesting. So how do you split your time from here in LA?
So typically it's, LA, it's more, I kind of would space it out around different like meetings or different kind of like business things, because I feel like when I'm in LA, that's when I'm like really working. When I'm here in San Francisco, it feels more of like land, ground, your routine,
Gotcha.
On Zoom. And when I feel like in LA, and more things are open. So when I'm driving everywhere and doing all these things there. So it's been nice. And I will say that it's a good balance for me, because I am a homebody. Like the pandemic, I will say, knowing that like we couldn't really go anywhere and everything was closed, it was, for me, I was like, yes, no one's inviting me to things, and I don't have to like make up a reason why I can't go, and I can like sorry, it's a pandemic, I can't leave.
Yep.
So I think I needed a little bit of like some type of different type of community to get me out of my shell and for me to figure out what my balance is. And so it's been good. And I think LA it's an interesting city. And I think the reason why I love LA so much is because I didn't go to LA trying to find myself or trying to find something. I think LA is a city that builds, I think it's how can I explain it? If you think of LA as like an animal, its sustenance comes from hopes and dreams of people.
The way to put it.
And so I think that it can be a challenging city for people to live in, because it can become like a vacuum for people, because it's so crowded and everyone kind of has like similar dreams and goals and trying to make it and this and that. And, you know, here in the Bay, it's like all the billboards are apps and tech companies. LA, it's like TV shows and movies, you know, so it's like almost the exact same thing. It's just a tech industry versus an entertainment industry. Everyone's, you know, pitching the next best app or show. Everyone is trying to raise money for something or the other. So very similar. But I think that because I came to LA with kind of knowing who I was and not needing to feed the beast with my hopes and dreams, that when things have happened that have been devastating in LA around my professional life, it didn't break me. Where I have some friends who have gone to LA with hopes and dreams and things didn't work out, and it breaks them in a different way that New York will break you, right?
Oh yeah.
You know,
I mean,
so
that entertainment industry, it's like it can be just as cutthroat as the finance industry in New York. It's like if you don't have what it takes to deal with what you have down here, then they're like, well, then get out of here.
Because there's a million other people out here who will do what you won't do, who have, you know, more connections than you have. And that's, you know, that's a lot, you know, and not everyone's cut out for that either. And I've been really lucky to meet people in the entertainment industry who are, you know, again, everyone's like, oh, people are so this and so that. And I've met the loveliest, amazing people. And it's funny, like sometimes I'll take a picture with someone and we'll post on Instagram. I have no clue what they do for work.
Yeah.
And we're like hang out all the time because we don't talk about that. You know, we talk about, you know, I don't know, we talk about other things. And I posted something recently and someone's like, you know who that is, right? And I'm like, yeah, it's, you know, so-and-so. And they're like, no. This is, and I'm like, oh, well, we didn't get to that point.
Look at that.
You know?
That's really cool.
Talk about, you know, and when people know you're a trainer, that's all they want to talk about anyway.
And you're training down there too. It's not a different career you have down there.
Right.
You have, okay.
Yeah, so still around fitness. I would say LA is a little bit different in the sense that I do a bit more, it's just a little bit more social down there. So it's like more, like I'm doing more photo shoots when I'm down there. I'm connecting with more photographers. I'm connecting with more brands, I would say, in LA. Whereas here, I feel like I'm more like in the community when I'm up here.
Gotcha.
And I know this community, and there are people here that I love and that love me, and so it's good. It's like a good balance. So when I'm in LA, it's just like, okay, I'm a bit like more on, I would say, and
that's really good. It's there's always that perception between Northern California and Southern California that in LA you kind of have to put on an image sometimes. You have to kind of be somebody you're not. At least that's the idea. And you come over here and we're very much more laid back. You know, NorCal you can wear sweaters because it's San Francisco and just chill. In LA you have to have the beach body. You got to have the certain image, and that's always been the back and forth between people who come and go from LA or people who have family here but they live down there and vice versa. Like, oh man, it's so different when I go back there compared to over here.
So I think it's like, I think again, like the more I think if we can be just comfortable in who we are and just like, this is who I am, you know, and there, you know, we're not one-dimensional people, right? And I think, you know, I love when people go to LA and they like flex a little bit more and they, you know, get a little bit, you know, fancy when they go down there. You know, it's like, yeah, because it feels nice to do that sometimes. And also it feels nice just to be in, you know, a Patagonia, you know,
I know.
jacket.
I know. What, if you could put your finger on one person specifically or a group of people, do you have that one success story of a client that came to you maybe at a low point in their life, whether physically or mentally, and you've been working with them for so long and now they've changed their life so much so that they are now doing this? Is there one person that sticks out to you? You don't have to name names, but you can give an idea of what happened.
Yeah. Okay. So there's, I'm grateful that I have a handful of people that come to mind. I'm currently working with one individual who is, I mean, gives me chills every time we get off of a session, because of the amount of work that they put into their healing journey. And it's inspiring to me. Like when I have moments where I'm like, today sucks, I can't. And I think about all the work that they are doing, and I get to witness that. So this one individual comes to mind just because we were working in a different way than I've typically worked with clients as well. I'm way more hands-on than I've ever been. In the sense of like, we're staying in more constant communication. We are, we're really flexible with how we meet, and based off of where they are in their space. Is it on the phone? Is it on Zoom? Is it in person? Like, just really trying to meet them where they are, because I think, like, to your point, like why we're here right now in person, magic happens differently when I think you're in person. So, and things are opening back up. So I think like it's been great. And this individual is just every single time, like, no excuses, just makes no excuse. And it's just like, if this is what we're working on this week, I'm going to do it 100%. And I'm going to do it even if it's uncomfortable, because the level of trust that was built. And knowing that I would never, and I say this, I will never make you do anything that I haven't done myself, or that I have not heavily researched, heavily connected with. Like, I'm not going to you're not a guinea pig to anything that I would recommend. Everything that I do is science-based, evidence-based, proven, so I think when you have that level of trust, you can really take people to places that they never thought. And recently we had a conversation. So I took 2 weeks off. I went to Europe, and right before we left, we were just kind of I was just doing a quick little check-in. I'm saying, okay, I'm going to be 2 weeks. I'm going to be really out of commission. I'm going to be 9 hours ahead. So it's going to be, hard for us to connect. And,
right.
And there was, when I got back, a lot had happened over that 2 weeks. And never once was there like like they handled it. And just handled it so beautifully. And not to say that it was, everything's great, and now we're working through like, okay, let's look at some habits that we want to, what's some habits? What are some practices that we can do to help to resource you during this time with your wellness and your fitness and your mindset and things like that. But it was kind of like that moment when my mom said, Allison, you're so logical and rational right now. And I had to keep reminding this person. I was like, do you understand that 6 months ago, we would be having a very different conversation? 6 months ago, I would be very concerned about your safety. And here you are, matter-of-factly explaining to me some of the challenges that you encountered over the past 2 weeks and how you were able to navigate through them. And I said, I had to keep celebrating it. And I remember them saying, like, I know it's hard for me to hear that because I'm just so focused on all the negative. So thank you for reminding me. And I ended the conversation. I said, I'm not expecting you to navigate through this perfectly, but I'm expecting you to navigate through it.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. However you do it, do it in a way that's going to support you, but it doesn't be perfect. But I'm always going to expect you to come through on the other side. And it was just, so, and I have, clients like that. I have one client who came to me who said, literally our first session, they were, had just ordered appetite suppressants. They're like, I can't stop eating. I'm ravenous. Like, it's like my head hurts. I can't focus at work. And, and I was like, okay, well, that's plan B. Because I'm a type of coach where I'll never say don't do anything. Mm-hmm. Because you tell someone not to do something, and if they're not fully committed to the training yet, they're going to do what they want to do anyway. So I have to create space for that. So I said, let's hold off. If in a month you're still feeling like this, then let's revisit it. Can we make that agreement with each other? Perfect. And we worked, and then I'm like, okay, now I got to really show up. I got to really, and we worked hard. And we're now, I think, we're coming up to our second year, our second year together, eating totally fine. She always jokes, she's like, Allison, now sometimes I can't even eat the amount of calories that you want me to eat because I feel so full. And a lot of our work was on, what are you really hungry for? what is it that you are really needing? How do we fill your life with things that fulfill you? Because I don't think it's a hunger thing. I don't think it's a physiological thing, because it doesn't make sense. You know what I mean? It was not making sense to me. And not to say that I know everything, but I felt it in my gut. And, we figured out her eating, and we found the right, level. And she's the right level of macros, and we found the right level of exercise and what type of exercise really worked for her body. And, we just really found this sweet spot where she feels empowered and she knows how to care for herself. And even now our sessions have moved from weekly to every 2 weeks because, and I still do the programming of her fitness, but for the most part, our sessions are just really checking in and making sure that the levels are all right. And if anything's changing, how do we make updates? And like that's what I love. I love when it becomes less about, Allison, what do I eat? Allison, how many calories should I burn, to what can we add? Let's stop focusing on what we need to take away. What can we add to your life that's going to give you a result of feeling healthier and happier and more fulfilled? Because if we can figure that out, the weight comes off, the sleeping patterns get better, the eating habits get better, the stress, everything just improves when we focus on that. And you have the right kind of foundation around the big things, the nutrition, the fitness, the sleep. Like, we get those in order, and then it's like, okay, let that run on autopilot. Let's check in, make sure, and progress you accordingly. But now let's talk about the other stuff.
Right.
That
is so inspiring, and it's also a lot to take on. So how do you balance not being burdened too much? Because you got to think about Allison too.
Yeah.
Hey, how's my own mental health? And say, I have a lot of clients who depend on me. There might be some that overly depend on me, where it's like, okay, now I can't talk to you every 5 minutes. I have other clients. How do you specifically work that into your life where you have that balance and not cross the line too much, where I'm just so vested into your everyday life that this is consuming?
I think it's boundaries are so important, and communicating those boundaries up, immediately, and the moment, and making agreements, like, yes, you're going to sign a waiver. Yes, you're going to sign a contract and all these things. And then we're going to have a conversation about agreements. What do you need to feel like this is going to be the best use of your investment? And can I offer that to you? And if I can't offer that to you, then let's talk about it and see if we can find a happy medium. And if we can, then we go. And if we can't, that's also okay. And I think that's the same in any relationship, in any transaction. Like I said, if it's not mutually beneficial to me, I don't do it. I just don't do it. Why? For me, I just don't understand why I have to do things that I don't want to do. You know what I mean? Like, in that sense, like, I don't like paying taxes, but I do pay taxes. Like, I stay within the law, but I think that when we are looking at our energy exchange, if it's in balance, then it spills in other places. So, my clients know from 10 to 12, I'm unavailable. That's my deep work time. That's when I'm working on my priorities. That's when I'm working on the big to-dos on my list. That's when my brain and my body is the most just prepped for success, is from 10 to 12. So that's sacred time for the things that are going to help me to continue to live my life and make money and all those things. From 7 to 9, it's, okay, so I'll start backwards. So I wake up around 6:30, naturally now, which is awesome. 7 to 8 o'clock is when I am, breath work, meditation, journaling, prayer, just sitting with a cup of hot water and lemon, looking out a window. This is
Allison time.
Solely. It's like my sacred soul time. Nothing, and that's it. Sometimes it's like your soul time is staying in bed for another hour, so, but I give myself that space. 8 o'clock, I do a workout. And I, follow my own program and all that. But 8 o'clock is when I like to move my body. It's the right time for me. I've tried working out in the afternoon, and by then it's doesn't work for me. Late at night doesn't work for me. So 8 o'clock is that perfect time. My mind has woken up. Now my body gets a chance to wake up. 9 o'clock is like my getting prepared for the day. So it's like I listen to a podcast as I'm getting dressed and making my coffee and making my breakfast. And so that's kind of like, all right, like setting the stage for that 10 o'clock time to start. Because once 10 o'clock hits, complete uninterrupted time of me working on whatever it is that's on the agenda for the day. I don't check email before 12. I don't communicate with the outside world before 12 o'clock if I don't have to.
And it's so disciplined of you. And for the record, she came here at 12 o'clock, so I can speak to that. That's pretty good that you can do that.
I was like, all right, yep, let's, but yeah, I don't want to, because I did it for so much of my life, taking on everyone else's urgencies, emergencies, and priorities first thing in the morning, then there's nothing left for me to tend to my own.
Yeah, that'll drain you fast.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
And, like we talked about me, like eventually wanting to have kids. And it's like, I know this is going to change if that's the route that I, go, right? So it's also, for right now, this works for me. And so I have to remember that too with my own clients who have children, right? Mm-hmm. When it's like, yeah, if you follow me on Instagram, you see my morning routine every day. It's like hot water with lemon. What am I grateful for? This is what I journaled. It's like,
yeah, you're pretty detailed in that. It's,
it's like
impressive.
Work.
Yep.
And I also have to remind myself that like not everyone can do that. So my way is not better or worse. It's just my way. And so, that helps me to make sure that and then 12 o'clock typically is when I have lunch. And then I check emails and then I, get into my day. And then I'm, I have 2 clients this afternoon. I'm going to teach a group fitness class tonight. Like will be completely at will to those who I'm called to serve. But I'm never going to serve people until I've served myself.
Yep, absolutely.
I can't do it.
With your experience in working in the corporate environment in New York, I know you have clients now who are probably in a similar place that you were back then. And you could probably hear it coming out of them.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Allison this and the boss, and I had no idea it was going to be this. If they're not asking you specifically for advice, how are you communicating to them? Okay, I've been in your shoes. I followed the routine. I did the college thing, and I was supposed to get that job that you have now, and I did. And it completely just destroyed my idea of what reality was. Yeah. And here's how I got through it. How do you work that into it? Or do they even ask you directly?
Yeah, a lot of people will ask. I think now that people are feeling it so much more, I think they're a little bit more of like in panic mode of like, oh my gosh, what's happening? Like, what did you do? Like I literally had a client last week, and it's funny. I said, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to tell you.
Like that.
Because I can't, like your experience is different. So I think what I do in those moments, I ask a lot of questions, because I think we are so, with social media and the internet and our phones attached to our hip at all times, we get information instantaneously. And so we're not really good at asking ourselves questions. And our brain, that's all our brain does all day, is answer questions.
Yeah.
Is this dangerous? Is this going to help me? Am I attracted to this person? Is this going to make me happy? Is this too heavy? Will this chair hold me up when I sit down? Like all these, that's all our brain does. And then whatever questions we ask, then we act on those answers that our brain's giving us. That's where the sensory, that's it. That's all our brain does.
Yep.
And so I just tend to ask a lot of questions. And I think the hardest question that I ask to people, that I force them to chew on, is, what do you want? What do you want? And it always catches people off guard, because they realize they've never really thought about what they truly want. Mm-hmm. And I went on this whole deep dive of the word desire. Because desire, day of sire, God, of God. So it's basically like this thing that's like given to you, and that's like deep in your core. Like, what do you really desire? And I think like desire is like, and I come from like a Christian background. So I was like, Mom, like, I'm going into this like deep dive of things, like, she's always like, wait, what are you talking about? Why are you talking about desires? And I'm like, no. And when I broke it down that way, we had a really beautiful conversation of like, when you desire something, you can't sleep, you won't stop until you have this thing. And it's not a greed thing. It's not a lust thing. It's literally like, I have this deep desire to help people to feel healthy and strong and confident and capable. Like that's all I think about. It's all I think about is like, how can I show up more for other people? Mm-hmm. That's it. And that's all I think about. And so I know that's like what I'm supposed to do. And so I tend to ask people like, what is it that you want? What is it that you desire? And then I typically say, okay, and why? Because blah, blah, blah. Okay, why? Blah, 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 blah. Why? I'll ask why 10 times. Mm-hmm. Because they need to hear themselves saying what it is they want. Because people come to me saying, I want to lose 30 pounds. I'm like, okay. Why? Well, because, okay, why? And like, we'll get down to it. People are sobbing, it's like, because when my parents, when I was young, my parents, and I'm like, yeah, you want to be a healthy parent so that your kids aren't embarrassed like you were growing up. And you want to show up for your partner, or you want to do that. All of it's cool. And guess what? I can work with that. Because when you don't want to get up in the morning, or when you don't want to do what I'm asking you to do, I'm going to come back and say, remember when we talked about you desiring to be the best parent possible, and you taking on these healthier habits will allow you to live the longest life that you can, but with what you can control. Remember when you had that conversation? Yeah. Okay. Get to it.
It's so awesome to see it that way. And, like I'm no guru. I'm not in the business of giving advice to people, because I know it works for me.
Right.
But that's my life, and it's not going to work for everybody else. So I don't try to tell people how to live. But there's one thing that I've learned in my 30s. It's that you really have to dig deep down and say, why am I doing all this? And you realize, at least for me, in your early late 20s, you are chasing the clout. You're chasing, at least me. I know some people disagree with me on that one, but there is going to be the essence of, well, I need to get this car or have these clothes at this life, because that's going to give me the attention I want, and I'll be respected by other guys, and you'll get more attention from women, and you fall into this trap in your early 20s. And then when you're late 20s and you have that BMW 5 Series, you're like, all right, do I really need this car? It was fun back when I was 22, but really I'm happy now with my 07 Civic that I just keep cherry as much as I can. It gets me point A to point B paid off. I don't need no fancy car to go out and show people something, because I have nothing to prove to anybody else.
Right.
And it's funny how we realize this when we get older being our 30s. It's like, that's really not important anymore. What's really important is this here, this conversation, the social interaction with other people, because now you have a deep desire to learn more, or at least from my point of view. And some people might say, you know what? I really want a family. I really want the kids. I want that lifestyle. And it's like, if that's what you want to prioritize, by all means, you go for it. And you're going to make the choices in your life that you're going to need to make it happen.
Exactly.
You're not going to spend money frivolously because you're like, hey, I got to hunker down. I'm saving for a house, or I'm saving for the kid stuff. You're just going to do it. And don't be a slave to what other people say. Well, you should want this. You should want that. That's what you want. It's not what I want.
Right.
I know where I'm going. And if that means, like in my example, if that means I never have kids, so be it. But I'm going to make an impact in somebody else's life in a way I couldn't be before. So it's great to hear you say that, because that's the kind of thing that I think people need to hear more of. Talking to somebody who's in their 20s now at my age, it's like, you know what? I know they're not going to listen, and I get it, because I didn't listen when I was 20. Right. I had the older cousin that I thought was an older brother. He'd tell you the whole day, this is why. And I'm like, and you look at him and you're like, yeah, but that was you. It's different now. You don't know what I know. I'm going to do something different. And then you get older and realize, he was right the whole time.
The whole time. I mean, I have a 25-year-old sister.
Oh, yeah.
And, and she's a bit wise, I would say. But I really do. I hold my tongue a lot, because I'm like, she doesn't, you know what I mean? I'm like, no, like, live your life, make your mistakes. And in my opinion, I think she's not making enough mistakes. Like, I was like, you need more nights out where you're like, wow, what happened? You know what I mean? Like, I was like, you need some more of like those like moments of like, waking up and, so dehydrated because you've, drank way too many whatever awful drinks you drink when you're in your 20s because you don't know alcohol.
Oh, geez,
you know what I mean? Like,
drinks,
you need to learn those lessons so that you don't do them when you're in your 30s. But I think I really try my hardest to just guide people and give them tools or give them something that they can chew on and think about than telling them what to do. One, because I hate being told what to do. Like I hate it. Like I hate when
join the club.
Yeah, like to the point where like I hate when my microwave goes off because it's telling me like I need to go, like I'm like I will end you at 2 minutes. I will tell you when it's done.
Well, you go deep on that.
Yeah, I think I need to seek some professional help with that. But I think that that's again like, you know, when you start to know your gifts, and I think one of my gifts is again that deep listening and being really curious, because when we're kids, you know, we ask why, mm-hmm. you know, to where, you know, the parental figures in our life are like, because I said so, you know, like that's, you know, but we are naturally curious beings, and somewhere it gets lost.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could be more curious about, you know, what do I want? What do I need? What, you know, I just was talking to a client today, yesterday, and we were talking about setting up reminders in her phone to go off to ask her questions. So like one question is like, what am I grateful for right now? And, you know, another question is, what do I need to support myself right now? Mm-hmm. And so that level of curiosity, I think, can really help to break the patterns and like the autopilot of like doing the same thing over and over again, right? Mm-hmm. And so I'm constantly asking myself, like, what do I need right now? Like even, you know, if I'm tired, I don't say, oh, I'm so tired, because that's not helpful for me. Mm-hmm. I say, the question is, what do I need right now? Or it's like, I'm tired, what do I need? Mm-hmm. Right? Because I need, like, sticking to the state of I'm so tired, well, you're just going to be more tired, because you're just like declaring that you're exhausted. So your body's like, yep, we're exhausted. Let's just, you know, sink into this. Mm-hmm. So I'll say, I'm so exhausted. What do I need right now? Maybe some fresh air. Oh, maybe a coffee. You know, maybe I need to go move my body, do some squats. Maybe I need to call a friend. You know, maybe I need to watch 10 minutes of Game of Thrones. I don't know. But like, I constantly will ask myself, what do I need when I say something that may drain my energy more? Like, I'm so frustrated right now. Okay, what do I need? I need to close my laptop. Mm-hmm. I need to not respond to this email because I'm frustrated. Why would I respond to an email? Like, I get an email, I get frustrated, and then it's like I feel obligated to respond. Why would I respond? This isn't the time. I'm frustrated because of what was just said. I need to close my laptop and do something else and get some new perspective, take a walk and come back and see if I'm still frustrated. And if I read the email again and it still pisses me off, then I close the email again. But like, if we could start doing that more, those are those small hacks we can start doing.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if we just start to apply more curiosity into like how we feel, then you get self-compassion.
It's a good way to see it.
You know what I mean? And you get self-compassion, you get compassion for others. Mm-hmm. It's really hard to have true compassion for someone else if you don't have compassion for yourself.
And the things that we learn as we get older, not older, but our 30s.
Wisdom, right?
Exactly.
You know, because like your 20s are, I think the 20s are such an amazing time because you think you know everything and you know nothing. And that level of like ignorance truly is bliss, because mm-hmm. you just dive into things, you say yes to things that you probably would never say yes to, and they become great experiences. You realize like, oh, I don't like dating that type of person, or I don't like living in this type of situation, or I don't like this type of job. Like I think for most people in your 20s, you learn a lot of like what you don't want. And then I think there's a good handful of people who like life just worked out and they're like, this is exactly what I wanted. I wanted this lifestyle and it worked out and I found the person that I'm supposed to be with. And, and I think that's also wonderful. Like I think it's awesome. And I can't speak to what that life is like because everything that I thought that I was going to have, be, do, and become the complete opposite. Mm-hmm. So, I can't speak to my life working out as I had it planned out to be. And the people who have, I'm like, that's also awesome because I know that my life might give that person some anxiety. right? Of like, oh, you're moving around, you're doing this, you're doing that,
yeah,
like that's not, my life is not normal.
Interesting.
At all. And I love every single second of it.
Well, with that, what's Allison's future hold for you? Because you brought something up that I think probably should be talked about more, and that is the thought of freezing your eggs.
Yeah.
And it's something that, as a guy, I cannot relate to. I do know it's a very important topic, and it's something that we're seeing more and more often. I had a politician on a couple of months ago, and she said the exact same thing, that's now starting to be a trend now because people are following their careers, and you want to be able to sort of hold back time, if you will. Growing up in your 20s, you probably would have thought, getting out of college, okay, I'll be married with kids with this great job, and that's going to be my life.
Yep.
And life sort of throws a big curveball at you and say, well, didn't work out exactly the way that I thought I was supposed to be. Okay, are you like holding back and saying, career focus? What's that?
Yeah, so I have a partner, and we're awesome, and it's amazing. And again, it's like, not, I think it's funny. I was just with some girlfriends. There's 4 of us, and all of us were all like, I think 36 to like 40. Like that's like our age range. And we were all like reminiscing over like how we were all single around the same time, and like how awful it was, for many different reasons. And, I think what we all have agreed upon, because like now we're all like have our people. Like we are in it, and this is it. Like, this is it. Like, and we're like being in your late 30s and finding your person, because I think for each of us, we were able to really establish ourselves in our careers. I think we were really able to understand who we are as women and what we stand for, and who we are. And I think we've all, like, especially this group of 4 of us, all found our voice and are unapologetic about that voice. And now it's like our people get to experience us in this space. And so whatever comes next, career, babies, moving across country, whatever it is, we get to experience that with someone else who has also been on the same journey, right? Same age range. My partner's 41, same age range. And it's like, we get to experience, and we joke all the time, like, I'm so glad I met you now. Because if I would have met you 5 years ago, it wouldn't work, because I was a mess, or, you were being, just
doing what you
were
do.
having fun all over San Francisco, So also because I understand now what my boundaries are, I understand like what I want my life to look like professionally. I don't have to say yes to everything. I say yes to things that are a wholehearted yes. If it's not a wholehearted yes, I don't do it. So having that privilege and the ability to do that, because I've worked so hard. The past 20 years of my professional life have been hard work. Hard work. And I would never take that back. But all that hard work has allowed me now, if I think about the next 20 years of my life, it's a business that allows me to have space for family, have space for myself, have space for creating, have space for making impact, and still making money to live the life that I want to live. And that's what I think is why I'm excited for my future, because of all of and for professionally what I've done. I think the inner work that I've done of therapy, of, figuring out my own self-care practices, my mental health support, having all the things that I need, like doing all of that has also allowed me to know that, what the last 20 years will look very different than the next 20 years. God willing, if I'm alive, it's going to be, and again, I don't really have a plan. I don't have a picture. You know what I mean? Because what I've learned in the past 20 years is that, Mike Tyson said it best. Everyone has a plan till they get punched in the face.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
So I think it's less of this is what I want my life to look like. And it's more of, this is what I want my life to feel like. I want my life to feel spacious. I want my life to feel present. I want my life to feel connected. I want my life to feel like it's making an impact. I want my life to feel fun. So it's like I'm very keen and very clear on how I want to feel and how I intend to show up. And then because I'm clear on those things, then it's like I only do the things that are in alignment with that.
That is so awesome to hear it. I mean, a lot of people who are younger than us get caught up in the internet, the trending topics, TikTok, Instagram. You can get lost in that so easily. And I've seen it like, well, you can keep going down the rabbit hole here. And one of the biggest things that people can get down the rabbit hole of is in relationships. What is expected of me, or what do I want in somebody? People say I want this, but I don't want that. Or if I hit 35, I'm too old. No one's going to want me. All that stuff like there. Take a step back and you look at real life. I don't see people in real life, falling into that trap. Our age group. I see a lot of 20-year-olds so worried about that they're not going to find somebody who understands them, or there's going to be expectations. A lot of young women might feel, well, if I get into my 30s, no guy's going to want me because they're going to want the 21-year-old, or they're going to want, or their parents are going to say this, whatever. And like, we're living examples of once you get into your 30s, it actually, as long as you're both on the same page, which is the big one, you both talk about, where's this going? What do we want from now? Because if you want this, I am over here. I got careers to follow, whatever. If you want to follow me, we can go travel the world, great. But if you want to have the suburban lifestyle, I'm like, hey, that's not me now.
Yeah. Well, communication.
Right.
I think it's so funny. One of my clients I used to train, she was about 10 years younger than me. And we would always joke that like, whatever the issue was like the solution was communication. Like we would always, I'm like, well, yeah, because it's communication, And I think I would say for women, especially like in their 20s, I actually have a bit more faith in this younger generation, especially of women. They seem to be a bit more sure of themselves in a way that I never was in my 20s. And I still think that you can be very sure of yourself and still not trust that being fully who you are will be accepted or loved. So you can love yourself all you want, but, or feel confident, like know who you are. But if you get with a person who, you don't feel safe to be fully yourself, well, then you start making concessions. You start to make sacrifices. You start to not say what you want to say because you're afraid if I say the thing or do the thing, they're not going to love me. Like, because we're all still human. We all want to be loved and appreciated and seen and acknowledged. So I think for the younger generation, I would say because it's such a, phone, emoji, Instagram, TikTok type communication style, it's hard to have a deep, emotional, compassionate conversation via text. It's hard to talk about. Yep. You know what I mean? So
I know. I've seen it way too many times.
Right?
You send a text with the right connotation, but they take it in a different connotation. And it's like, no, that's not what I meant, dude. That was straight up this.
Right, So I think to your point of like this pressure of like having to be a certain way because they don't really communicate it, right? So it's like, okay, I think they want me to be this so I can be this, or, not having the conversation early on about, I don't want kids, or I want kids, or I want to, live in San Francisco forever, or I want to, some people, it's like living in Oakland or crossing a bridge is like moving to Australia. What I mean?
Yep.
But it's like these are real conversations. I think that if we have them sooner, not in a, okay, we've been dating for 2 weeks and we're going to get married tomorrow, but just like, here are my values. These are my values. This is what I care about. This is what I'm passionate about. These are my non-negotiables. Mm-hmm. And I think that, if I look at my relationships in my 20s, a lot of it was either me not communicating my non-negotiables or me thinking that I can like change the person or like make the person fit a mold or that, or like convince myself that it's not that important. And you end up playing yourself and the other person when you do that because, it doesn't work. And it's unfair.
Yep.
It's unfair to you and it's unfair to the other person. When it's just like, you can have a relationship that's like really crappy and be like, it's easy to say like, this person was horrible. This person sucked, Yeah. Versus like, actually decent human, just like making some pretty crappy decisions. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, definitely.
And it just didn't work. Like where we were in our lives didn't work. If we would have met 10 years later, probably because we'd figured our shit out. But like, it's not working right now. And being able to say like, let's just go separate ways.
That's incredible to hear. And I
You
think,
know?
is it fair to say at this point in your life, what's more important to you is the fact that you got somebody that you can communicate with and you're going the same direction together, regardless of what that direction is. And if that means that the cars don't fall where you have your own children, that you're comfortable with it
Yeah.
because you have somebody that you can build a life with,
Yeah.
whatever that life looks like.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's really cool because sometimes, and I get it, it's different for women than men. You know, for some women, they may feel like if you don't have a child, then
Yeah.
you know, they're inferior or they didn't, the
They
pressure
didn't do
from
their job, the thing that they were designed to do. And I get that. I mean, I have people in my life, people that have gone through a really difficult fertility journey. And I would be remiss to say like, oh, like I don't think about it. I do think about it, you know? And I recently was talking to, I forget who I was talking to, but I just said, you know, it's easier said than done because I can be on this side of it and say, if it doesn't work, then it's like fine. But you know, it's like, what do you do after the third or the fourth? You know what I mean? Like that fundamentally changes a person. And what I'm grateful for, I think, also being older, is that there is more conversation around the fertility journey, and there is more, you know. There, and that's for me, I think, is really helpful, and I want to lean into that, not to take on other people's journeys, but just to see like, what does it look like to keep going and to keep pushing through that, if that's what you really want. Because if that's what you really want, that is your desire. I'm never going to tell you, you know what I'm like, that's your, you know. And so it's like, I think for me, it's being aware of all the complications and the possibilities and the opportunities and the science. And I mean, we've come light years, you know, with science of you know, fertility science, which I'm so grateful for. And being in the Bay Area, honestly, there are some amazing clinics and people, and, you know, so I'm so, again, grateful to be in a city that I feel like has a lot of options for me to like explore that, and people I can talk to, and, you know, all of that. But it is, you know, I think I think to some of my friends who have gone through their own journey, and everyone's journey and the end result has been significantly different. Like no one was the same, like very interesting of how they've, you know, and that to me is super cool in a way. It's just like, Allison, you know, if you say that you want to be a mom, you'll be a mom one way or another. You'll be a mom. And like, that's it.
You want it, you're going to go out and get it. You're going to make it happen.
You're right.
And I think you can give a great example to a lot of younger women who think that a lot of us guys just want to have kids by a certain age, and if you can't give it to us, we're going to find somebody else younger and healthier. It's like, actually, especially we're in an era where you're around corporate career America, it's like, actually, I'm kind of cool if I find somebody that I can have a good relationship with. We could sit and have a conversation, because that's more important to me than if kids ever happen or not. You know, listen to the internet, they'll tell you it's exactly the opposite.
Right. Yeah.
Really, it's no, actually, I don't want to get divorced 5 times. I don't want to go through multiple, you know, ups and downs. It's like, no, I kind of want to be able to talk to somebody. We'll have arguments like anybody else does. That's part of it. But the fact is that we can have a life together. Whatever that life looks like, we'll figure it out, because we're going on the journey together.
Right.
Instead of just what my parents tell me I'm supposed to, or your parents say, your friends are having all these, so you should do it. So you should do it.
Yeah. And it's like, you know, and I think too, it's the, you know, what I always tell people, it's like, in relationships, it's a daily choice to choose that person. And that's it. You know, it's every day. It's like you're choosing that person. And, you know, what we say in our relationship, it's like, do you want to be right, or do you want to be in this relationship? Because sometimes the ego gets in the way, and it's like, there's only one option. You're either right or we're together. So is this the thing you want to, like, is this the thing? Because it can be the thing, but you know. And so it's like we at first it was a joke, but then like now we say it often, because it's like, what's really important? What's the main thing? Is it to prove dominance over the other person, or to you know, or is it to say like, okay, let's talk about this? And I mean, we're in couples therapy, and it's one of my favorite things to do every week, because we are in a container with someone who is helping us to talk about things that we may not know how to articulate the words, or we may need another perspective. And it's like we're learning tools of communication. And, you know, we didn't go into it in crisis. It was just like, I just want to keep going deeper into this relationship. And I think that there's probably more that we could learn and better ways of navigating some of the challenges with more tools, you know, and it's not what I thought. I thought like couples therapy was like, you did this and you did that and like be on my team, you know what I mean? And instead it's been this like beautiful, deeper exploration of ourselves and the relationship and you know what we want and what we don't want and asking, you know, I think, you know, and our therapist is great because all she does is ask questions. You know, it's like she's very rarely telling us what to do. She's kind of like, okay, well, like let's think about this. Let's play in the space a little bit. Let's see how this feels. What would you know? And so, yeah, you know, and so a lot of our friends now use our
That's really cool that it's preventative for you, not we have a problem and let's go fix it, whatever. I will tell you one thing with it, and every now and then, you have an argument and it gets really deep, and sometimes without saying it, you look at each other like, is this it? Where are we going? You know, I got to really check myself. And from my point of view, I always think, well, you know, if you let this go, what, is life going to get better? Am I going to find someone better? You know, is that what I want to do? Or, you know, do I appreciate what I have here and say, okay, that means I got to work on things that I kind of never thought I had to, or that I shouldn't. But you do what you got to do because you know at the end of the day, this is what's more important to you. You're not going to find someone who's going to go on the same journey with you.
No.
And getting back in that dating market, it was brutal in my 20s. It's probably worse today.
I couldn't even imagine. I could not even imagine. And I think too, that's what I love about being older is because you know, you have more wisdom and you're no longer, you know, you know, you can lead with values. I'm not saying that when you're in your 20s, you don't lead with your values, but you have different values when you're in your 20s, right? You know? And so I think the bigger thing here is what I would tell anyone who's, you know, maybe in their 20s or just kind of like figuring things out. It's like, nothing is permanent, you know, like you can always go a different direction. You can always, you know, if you wake up one day and deep down in your heart, you know, like this is not the right thing for you or the other person, or this isn't the right job or the right location or the right whatever.
Wow.
You know, like it's going to suck and it's going to hurt people and it's going to hurt you and it's going to be a lot, but you don't have to, you know, stick with something that is hurtful and damaging to you, your mental well-being, your physical well-being, you know, like I think sometimes we stay in things way longer than we need to because we're afraid of like, well, you know, I don't want to do this or I don't want to. And I think, you know, you're going to have fights. You're going to have, you know, tough stuff in your job. You're going to have like really big moments. And you have to like take that time and think like, is this the thing? And if it's not the thing, then it's like you are responsible for doing the work to get through that thing. You're responsible for putting in that work and like I said, you don't have to navigate it perfectly, but you have to navigate it.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But then I think sometimes we realize like this is not healthy. This is not healthy.
It's difficult because you really got to have a come to Jesus moment, if you will, and say, okay, nobody around. What do I really want?
Yeah.
Maybe you're somebody that says, I really want to go to Paris and live for 6 months because I've always wanted to, but I'm afraid to tell the partner because it's not going to work out. And you're going to have to be cool with that. If you're going to give that up, is it going to come back to bite you 5 years, 10 years down the line? So many people do it because it's like they don't want to lose this, but really that's where their calling is. And it doesn't mean that you can't get back together later on. It just means right now you got to make a decision.
Well, and you know, it's funny, like, as you say that, because it's like that college boyfriend, right? Like the funny thing about the whole thing was he came to San Francisco and I was like, I don't want to go to San Francisco. I'm going to Chicago. 10 years later, I'm in San Francisco.
Oh, you play on the Niners?
Yeah.
All right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, it's funny, right? Like, it's funny how, but you make the decisions that you feel are best for you. And every big decision that I've made, I don't regret it at all. And it doesn't mean to say that it was like, okay, I made the decision, life is great. Now I'm like, no, it was hard.
Yep.
It was devastating. Every big decision I've made has been devastating. And also it created space for my next. And so I don't regret it. And I think because I've had the opportunity to have so many devastating results of big decisions, now I know. It's like, I'm not afraid to say no, absolutely not. Or yes, I'm going to do this thing, or, I'm going to do this or that or the other, and be fully confident in it, and know that my partner will be on board with it or not. And we'll talk about it. Mm-hmm. It won't be I want to do this thing and now it's like, we're done. It's like, okay, let's talk about it. Let's really lay everything out and let's look at every single option possible. And if still at that moment we can't find a way to move forward, then we have a different conversation. Mm-hmm. But that's being responsible. That's being responsible to all parties involved.
Yep. Like, you're never going to get everything that you think you want. And that's part of the reason, is that you not getting everything you think you want actually helps you grow. Like, well, maybe I won't do this, but look what I'm getting instead. I never would have thought about that.
Exactly.
Crazy stuff. If you didn't believe how fast time flies, you see that counter right there.
Oh my God.
These things go really cool when you get deep into conversation.
Yeah, you were right.
Yeah. But this was a great talk, Allison. Thank you so much for coming out. Now, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way to reach out to you, and what type of coaching do you offer? I know you have a free consultation.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Yeah. So I mean, the best way, it's either my website or it's Instagram. They're both my name, Allison Tibbs. So .com for the website, or Instagram, which is also weird to say, like, Instagram. Like, I don't even have a business card anymore, which is hilarious to me.
Yeah.
But the way that I like to coach, and the way that I'm really working with people, especially as we come into the new year, is I want to work with people that want to go deep, that want to look at everything, that are okay with me, like, saying, like, let's, what has been that thing in your wellness journey or your, like, transformation journey that has just, like, not moved, where it's like every time you get some momentum, you get stuck. Because the way I like to work with people, it's like, it's accountability, it's structure, it's principle based. So I'm looking at, like, you as a person, because I can say, eat this, don't eat that, do this, don't do that, but that doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. That doesn't matter at all. Because if it's not in your wheelhouse, like I have to learn to meet you where you are. So, right. So I do coaching, and we work together for a minimum of 3 months, because that's how long I've found that it takes to at least kind of scratch the surface and get into it. Yeah. Which I love that, because we get to really go deep. And so that's really where I'm leaning into. And most of my clients, they stick with me for a while, because we kind of hit one level, and then we're like, okay, now we're here. Now you're a newer version of yourself. Now what's possible? So it's kind of like this, like, summit, base camp summit, we kind of like keep going to the top there. So if anyone is interested and just, wants to learn more, I mean, you can, like, I'm an open book on social media. I share a lot. I have, like, a weekly newsletter where I share kind of, like, more deeper thoughts and different things like that. I teach some classes in San Francisco that are a lot of fun. You just go to Instagram or go to my website and, get on my calendar. We'll talk for about a half an hour and just kind of see what's possible. And
that's awesome. And it may be that maybe somebody isn't so much looking for the physical workouts, right, but just, I need to get everything up here set, and how you can work with them with that. Yeah.
So it's really around, like, for me, it's healthy lifestyle, healthy mindset. Like, that's really what we're going to work on. And that can be really anything that falls in that category.
That's awesome. I got to tell you, Allison, it's really enjoyable following you on Instagram to see your journey. We didn't even talk about your European trip. I mean, that looked like it was a blast. I want to go to Geneva now after seeing that little holiday market thing. I'm like, that's pretty cool. Haven't been to Europe yet. I need to get there.
Oh yeah. I know. I'm going to hold you accountable to that.
You will, yeah. And I have to make it happen, because I said I want to get there. We're going to make it happen.
Exactly.
And hopefully one day I can have you back on here, and we'll see what the future with Allison holds.
Absolutely.
So, thank you again for coming on, Allison. Amazing. Everybody, thank you for listening on Spotify, Apple, or watching on YouTube. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. Leave me a comment in Apple Podcasts or Spotify. I really appreciate it. And also help out the channel grow by sharing it with your friends. There's going to be reels on Instagram, but also I would love people to see the whole thing to get a better context for who my guests are, and today who Allison was, in a way you probably would have never seen, just, looking through Instagram and thinking who the person is, because you really don't. And I do have a Patreon channel. If you really enjoy the content and you want to help support the channel and what I do, you can click on the link in the description to patreon.com/Real Talks on the Rocks. And I really appreciate all my subscribers who are helping me continue on the journey. Thank you, Allison. Everybody, thank you for watching and listening. You have a good one.